Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm Anquan Boldin, co-founder of the Players Coalition. For the past 2 years, the Players Coalition has worked across the country to push key criminal justice reform legislation through educating ourselves on the issues plaguing our communities and identifying areas for us to expand our work into other important areas in police and community relations and education and economic advancement. The Players Coalition is committed to moving the needle around key issues through our financial contributions and support of our thoughtfully selected grantees. It's crucial we use our platform to showcase the importance, relevancy, and urgency of the work that our grantees are doing to address key issues and directly impact reform around police and community relations, criminal justice, education, and economic advancement. When it comes to the grant selection process, as a coalition, we identified specific criteria we felt important as we awarded funding. Applicants must be a 501c3 or 501c4. Scope of work must fall within at least one of the Players Coalition key pillars of focus. Organization must directly benefit a minimum of 1,000 impacted citizens annually. Must use evidence-based metrics of success, and the funds must be designated for a specific project, program, or educational initiative. The top candidates were then audited by an independent third-party firm to qualify potential grantees, ensuring transparency, equitability, and mission fulfillment. When it comes to the funds the grantees are receiving, it's a combination of the NFL Foundation players, players' personal contributions, and open philanthropy. With that, I would like to introduce co-founder Malcolm Jenkins.
How's everybody doing today? Malcolm Jenkins, co-founder of the Player Coalition. Players have come together to work collaboratively because we saw that there was a bigger impact that we can have as a collective body. And we wanted to use our platforms to impact systemic issues happening in our local communities where Black and brown people are being disenfranchised every day. A few years ago, we started meeting and learning from subject matter experts and evidence-based groups like the people you see on stage with us here today. And we started to take action, whether through meeting with legislators, writing op-eds, creating PSAs, in social media campaigns, conducting press interviews, or holding events and forums. Players were committed to joining the fight that these folks have spent decades doing the work. For example, my colleagues were floored when they heard that children as young as the age of 7 were being prosecuted in our courts. This led guys like Devin McCourty and Jason McCourty, Matt Slater, and others with the Patriots to lobby and successfully lobby to raise the age from 7 to 12 in Massachusetts, and that was passed last spring. Those same guys and other Pats players have been advocating for the Promise Act to divert funds to low-income schools, which would immediately provide resources such as books, computers, counseling, and more teachers. These are resources that are oftentimes taken for granted in our more affluent communities. In Pennsylvania, we learned that 1 in 3 Pennsylvanians have a criminal record. The consequences of that are that people have a hard time getting jobs, loans, higher education, and housing. This motivated myself and my teammates, Torrey Smith, Chris Long, Rodney McLeod, to successfully lobby to pass the Clean Slate Act. In Louisiana, Benjamin Watson and Demario Davis learned that more than 70,000 felons on probation and parole were prevented from voting. And they successfully lobbied to legislators to restore their voting rights last spring. In Florida, Anquan Boldin led an effort which was with support from NBA coach Stan Van Gundy and legend Grant Hill to support a campaign to restore voting rights to more than 1 million residents with past felonies or with past felony convictions. The ballot measure passed in November. And here in Atlanta, Adelius Thomas and more than 12 other players learned that thousands of people are unfairly being kept in jail following bail hearings, not because they have been convicted of a crime, but because they're too poor to pay the bail. Even though in the city of Atlanta, there's an ordinance that states that judges and prosecutors are supposed to take into consideration an individual's ability to pay bail. Those guys, as well as Josh McCown and Kelvin Beacham in New York, and players in nearly every state in the country, are advocating for bail reform. More than 100 players have lent their voice, in addition to other influencers across the country. Guys were on the ground with the Players Coalition in Baltimore, Chicago, New York, Cleveland, Seattle, Sacramento, Oakland, Charlotte, Detroit, New York, St. Louis, Tampa, Washington, D.C., and Philadelphia. Please take a moment to look at the screen as we share a short video regarding some of the major issues and work that players committed themselves to in 2018. Sometimes as athletes, we don't know the true value of our voice and what we have to say. When we educate ourselves and we do use our voice, it all has impact. In order to get the words that we want out there, we have to be creative in a way that we control that message.
An alliance of NFL players formed to take the sideline protests to state capitals across the country. This past offseason, the group, known as the Players Coalition, successfully lobbied for criminal justice reform bills in 3 states.
The Players Coalition is a vehicle really to just equip those with influence and impact with the knowledge that they need to really be able to stand up and be a champion for those who need it the most.
We feel that it's our responsibility to take a stand against the injustices that we see happening in America right now.
Our focus areas are on criminal justice reform, police and community relations, as well as economic and educational advancement. We see those areas as the #1 priority on how we can help build up our communities, especially those who have been historically marginalized and disenfranchised.
In Massachusetts, we helped raise the age for juvenile jurisdiction from 7 to 12. In Florida, we helped restore voting rights to 1.4 million formerly incarcerated Floridians. In Louisiana, we helped to restore voting rights to formerly incarcerated New Orleanians and successfully advocated for unanimous juries. In Michigan, we worked to make it easy for all Michiganders to vote and for everyone's vote to count. In Pennsylvania, we helped pass the Clean Slate Act, which automatically seals records for people with misdemeanor records. Most recently, we bailed out Philadelphians so they could be home for Thanksgiving.
You were one of the chief lobbyists, along with Troy Brown, for lowering the age of juvenile jurisdiction from 7 to 12, or raise it to 12. How'd that feel?
From speaking to the different experts that we've kind of been able to sit down with and them telling us, like, hey, this was a good job today, this will go a long way, it felt really good.
It's an incredible thing that the Players Coalition has been able to scare up over $90 million from the NFL for social justice around criminal justice reform.
They weren't coming with big ideas. They weren't coming to be famous. They were coming to learn more so they can make an informed decision about how to use their platform.
Whether it's a simple, tweet, whether you're putting your name on an op-ed or you're doing PSAs, or you're out there in the community encouraging the groups that are doing the work, or you're talking to legislators, there's a big spectrum of where you can participate, but your participation matters. We can maximize this moment in time that we have with our platform to really make a change. The Players Coalition will be around for years to come because we're an independent, player-driven organization dedicated to impacting social and racial inequality. Players have committed their own money, time, and resources. We're proud to expand in 2019 and partner with the following organizations to uplift their mission, support their work, and as players, create a call to action to the public and hold our public officials accountable to make a real difference in areas of education and economic advancement, criminal justice reform, and police and community relations. Tori Smith, one of our governing board members of the Player Coalition, will now present this year's grantees.
How y'all doing? Good. Year Up is a nonprofit organization that enables young adults to move from minimum wage to meaningful careers in just 1 year. Please welcome Belinda Stubblefield, Managing Director of Strategic Partnerships at Europe.
Thank you very much, Tori. On behalf of Year Up, I want to express our gratitude to the Players Coalition for all that you do and for recognizing the impact of Year Up and supporting our mission to close the opportunity divide. At Year Up, we recognize that talent is dispersed all across this country, but opportunity simply is not. Today, there are over 5 million young adults who are cut off from a clear path to a sustainable career simply because of the zip code they were born into and lack of access to the economic mainstream, despite the talent and drive to achieve much more. At the same time, there are many businesses who are in a dire situation with crippling skills gap for 12 million jobs by 2025 that need skilled talent. Europe's mission is to close this gap, the opportunity divide separating motivated young adults from the companies in need of their talent. We do this by providing in-demand professional and technical skills to thousands of young people across the country, ensuring they can launch successful careers at major companies like Bank of America, AT&T, JP Morgan Chase, and Facebook, among many more Fortune 500 firms. During our year-long program, the first 6 months are spent learning technical skills such as IT, web development, cybersecurity, financial operations, and business management, as well as professional skills, showing up on time every day, dressed appropriately, ready to work, speaking in front of groups, working in teams. Then they are able to apply these skills they've learned during the next 6 months with a full internship with a major company from around the country. We have over 200 corporate partners. And during these internships, they're able to gain valuable experience and also build their professional network. Throughout the year, our students earn an educational stipend and also complete coursework eligible for college credits. And Year Up works. Within 4 months of graduating from the program, 90% of our graduates are earning a starting salary of about $38,000 a year, which is placing them on a path to economic self-sufficiency, and are in college full-time as well, or are in college full-time as well. Even with these successes, we recognize that to close the opportunity divide, we need to continue scaling our program as well as pursue broader systems change. Over the next several years, we will continue to expand our proven approach in new markets and cities as we work to also, at the same time, shift employer perceptions and practices, broadening career pathways for millions of young adults across the United States in need of an opportunity. Thank you so much for your support and partnership.
Communities in Schools is the leading national organization empowering students to stay in school by utilizing a model that matches at-risk students with specific resources that they need to beat the odds. Please welcome Kathy Lally, Vice President of Growth and Impact at Communities in Schools.
Thank you so much, Tori. It's a privilege and honor to be here today with the Players Coalition and share the stage with these esteemed organizations doing great work across our country. I want to thank and commend the Players Coalition for your inspired leadership to use your voices and resources to advance social justice in our country. We are aligned with the Players Coalition. We recognize and experience every day the stark equity crisis in our nation's schools with continued achievement and opportunity gaps for students of color and those that are low income. Our education system needs help. Communities in Schools has a proven model that we call integrated student supports that works. This model places a professionally trained site coordinator inside schools to work one-on-one with students at risk of dropping out. Our site coordinators, through building relationships with students and school leaders, address the barriers that get in the way of student success in school, whether it's additional academic support in a particular subject or help with basic needs like food, clothing, and shelter. Our site coordinators bring resources from the community into the school to do whatever it takes to help a student be present and stay on track and in school. Our mission is simple: to surround students with a community of support to empower them to stay in school and achieve in life. We are in 2,300 schools nationwide in some of the places most in need in America. Site coordinators level the playing field for students. Nearly 80% of the students we serve are students of color and are nearly all low income. Last year, 93% of our seniors graduated or earned their GED. Communities in Schools has embarked and embraced a strategic imperative to promote and embed diversity, equity, and inclusion as our way of working. This investment from the Players Coalition will allow us to do three things. One, enhance training and tools to support our site coordinators' diversity, equity, and inclusion in their schools and communities. Two, to ensure the CIS model continues to address issues of equity through our ongoing research and monitoring of efforts. And finally, to promote and advocate for restorative justice practices like peer-mediated conflict resolution to replace suspension and expulsion, which results in students getting further disconnected from school, which is the exact opposite of what we intend that effort to do. Communities in Schools is here with a promise to deliver. We thank you for entrusting us with your resources to improve educational opportunities for the students who need us the most. With deep appreciation on behalf of Communities in Schools and the students we serve, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Advancement Project is a next-generation, multiracial policy, communications, and legal action organization committed to civil rights and racial justice. Please welcome Judith Brown, Dianis, Executive Director at Advancement Project.
Thank you, and thank you to the Players Coalition for your support. And to the men who have lifted their voices against injustice as part of the Players Coalition, we thank you, and we need you. We've just met today, but it is nice to know that we have been in the same fights. For Advancement Project, for years we have been working on restoring voting rights in Louisiana and in Florida, and so we're glad that we were able to be down in fights where we won, because winning is good. We are excited to receive support during our 20th anniversary for our Free and Safe campaign, which is working to support building power in communities of color to end the school-to-prison pipeline and mass incarceration by transforming policing and the criminal justice system, reinvesting in people, and restoring their voting rights. As we stand here today, Black and brown students are being unnecessarily arrested in their schools and thrown into the criminal justice system. In Black and brown communities, people are over-policed and over-criminalized. They receive law and order policing, while white communities receive protect and serve. Black and brown people feel and are treated as suspects every day. Too many Black and brown people are sitting in jails because they merely cannot afford bail. If convicted, too many Black and brown people live under a system of control and surveillance in an unforgiving system for most of their lives. And in too many places, as a result, they cannot vote ever again. Just last week in Jefferson County, Louisiana, a teacher called a police officer into her classroom because a Black student smelled like cigarettes. Jamie Colson was removed from that classroom by the officer. He was brutalized and arrested. When students protested the next day, they were met by police force. Some were arrested, some were expelled, and others were suspended. There we are helping a group called Rethink. And they are responding, and hopefully we will remove cops from that school. There are 1.6 million students in this country who have a police officer, but no counselor in their school. Black students are 3 times more likely to attend a school with security and no mental health supports. We are working to have our tax dollars reinvested in our young people to give them high-quality education and the support they need to thrive. In St. Louis, 95% of the people in the workhouse jail, mostly Black, are sitting behind bars because they couldn't pay bail. These people have been charged but not convicted. The average bail is $35,000, and the average stay is 300 days. We just sued the court system there this week to reform the bail system. Supporting Action St. Louis, we ultimately hope to end this bail system and close that jail where conditions are horrendous. We hope to put that money back into the community so families can thrive. For the last 20 years, Advancement Project has worked across the country to dismantle structural racism and the systems that maintain a hierarchy in this country based on race. For 20 years, we've successfully been breaking the school-to-prison pipeline. I've had the pleasure to work there for the last 20 years. We support communities by providing legal, organizing, and communication support. We build their capacity for these fights, including through our action camps where we've trained over 1,200 organizers. We're working in Philly, Detroit, Miami, New Orleans, Milwaukee, and Phoenix to hold officials accountable, transform systems, and reimagine safety. We're helping to restore voting rights in Florida, Louisiana, Michigan, and Virginia. We know that we have a lot of work to do, and we're proud to be working with you all. Too many communities feel like they are living in a police state. Mass incarceration starts in kindergarten. And we know that Black and brown people put the mass in mass incarceration. We are working for the day when we will all be free and safe. Thank you again for your support. We look forward to our partnership.
The National Juvenile Defender Center provides support to public defenders, appointed counsel, law school clinical programs, and nonprofit law centers to ensure quality representation in urban, suburban, rural, and tribal areas. Please welcome Mary Ann Scaley, Executive Director of National Juvenile Defender Center.
Thank you so much, Tori, and thank you so much to Players Coalition and all of you who have taken the time to lift up the voices of young people in our court systems. So, as we all know, the success of our children is critical to the success of our nation. And we have an obligation to create pathways to success for our children. In the words of Nelson Mandela, there can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children. And we have failed our children and continue to fail our children every day in the juvenile legal system that we have constructed in this nation. Access to justice for children requires access to a juvenile defense lawyer, a lawyer who is well-trained and skilled to bring their rights and their voices before the court. And there's this common misperception that the juvenile justice system is just. People just don't know what happens inside our courtrooms. And in a nation that was founded on principles of liberty and justice for all, including our children, it's just not the reality. The National Juvenile Defender Center is absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to partner with Players Coalition to reveal that for too long we have denied the promises of the Constitution to our young people. In fact, in 39 states, we don't automatically give children a lawyer when they face the court system. And in 34 states, we charge children for access to a free lawyer, meaning their families and they themselves are assessed a cost. And without paying it, they cannot be released from the system. We incarcerate children at the highest rate in the world. And we do so, as we learned about from the work Players Coalition did in Massachusetts to raise the age from 7 to 12. In 29 states, you can prosecute a 5-year-old, and 5-year-olds are prosecuted in some states. We also assess fees against children and families and costs that trap them in the system of the courts and don't allow them to get on pathways to success. And 2/3 of the young people who we remove from communities and homes are children of color. This partnership with the Players Coalition can transform these realities. It can create awareness, education, and real opportunities for transformation. We can ensure that every child has a defense lawyer that you would want if it were your child facing the court system. We can work towards eliminating fees and costs that are assessed against children and families who are struggling to make ends meet. And today, the National Juvenile Defender Center is initiating an effort to transform juvenile cash bail and juvenile courts. That's right. We assess cash bail against children, not just adults. And then we lock them up because their ability to be free is dependent on their ability to post bail. In this partnership, we can eliminate the shackles and the chains that we wrap around our children as we parade them through the court systems in this nation. We can eliminate solitary confinement, holding our young people for 23 hours at a time. We can end the criminalization of childhood with this partnership by elevating these issues, bringing awareness to them, and creating change, lasting change. It is time for the reckoning of the soul of America, and with Players Coalition, we know the call to reckoning can be now. Thank you.
The Center for Policing Equity is the largest research and action think tank on race, policing, and policing in the world. Please welcome Philip Goff, President of the Center for Policing Equity.
Thank you, Tori. Thank you to the Players Coalition, to the men who gave their time, some of whom sacrificing paychecks, to learn about this, not just to go in and make a name, but to learn about this, and to the women who've been organizing behind it. The Players Coalition is the players and the people who help to coordinate. I want to make sure that they get a shout out as well. So my name is Philip Goff. I do have a PhD in psychology. To the reporters in the room, I'm going to just ask you personally, please don't call me Dr. Phil. At the Center for Policing Equity, we start with one core observation about humanity, which is that we measure the things that matter to us. Businesses will measure their profit. Students keep track of their grades. Even parents measure the growth of their children with pencil markings in the doorframe, right? We all measure the things that matter to us, which means that we feel it when nobody's bothered to measure anything at all. For the past quarter century in this country, we have not bothered to measure what police officers do, even in the wake of the viral videos that awoke a national spirit to say that criminal legal systems need reform. We have no serious national database on what police officers do, which is why in 2012, at the request of 36 leaders from across law enforcement, the Center for Policing Equity created the National Science Foundation-funded National Justice Database, which is the first and largest database of police behavior in the world. It's a humble brag, but we like to step over that bar and claim it boldly. We cover now about a third of the United States by population, looking at police stops, vehicle and pedestrian, as well as use of force. That's all use of force, not just deadly force, anything that could put somebody in the hospital. And what we really do with that is we work inside of the police department. So for those of you who are wondering about this, we kind of work like vampires. We have to be invited in before we can do our mischief. But we're not the scary kind. We work with them. So we're kind of like sparkly, like from Twilight. And with that access, we give back to police departments something that really is fundamental to any organization's success. If you've got a goal or a problem, you can measure it, and you have to hold yourself accountable to it. When we haven't measured what police officers do, we can't hold them accountable to it. But the thing that I think is the best news story in all of this work that we do is that police chiefs and activists, they want the same thing. They want the ability to hold law enforcement accountable to shared values of fairness and dignity. And they already do this. They already do data-driven accountability for crime. Most everybody here has heard of the term CompStat. It's a system by which law enforcement holds themselves accountable to data around crime to make sure crime doesn't get out of hand. Well, if you measure burdensome and disparate policing, you can do the same thing. You can create a CompStat, but just for justice. And that's what the Center for Policing Equity has been doing. In partnership with our team at Google, using a bunch of engineers, we have taken what it takes a police department 2 years to clean and audit and analyze their data. We're down to, from 24 months, down to about 24 hours. We'll be down to about 24 minutes by the end of June, the end of this calendar year. And with that, we can allow departments to hold themselves accountable to those values. And the lovely thing about holding people accountable to their values, when they see the numbers, they can do something about it. So I'll give you one concrete example. In Minneapolis, if you ask them to go out and heal the moral harms of race in policing, I'm not sure any police department's up for that job. But if you tell them, your data say, you seem to be using a lot of force on homeless folks, you want to knock that off? That's a thing they can do. So in 2015, they came to us, they said, hey, our community thinks we might be using force too often. And we showed them how to use their data to identify situations where force could be avoided. Now, in the 10 years before doing this work, they had reduced use of force by 48%. They'd cut it in half across 10 years. And last year, when we finally rolled out our data process for them, they cut it in half again in 1 year alone. Now, what would the country look like if police were allowed to hold themselves accountable to the values they share with communities? What would community trust, not just in police, but in the broader systems that are supposed to hold themselves accountable and govern the way they engage with their children and with their democracy? What would it look like? The funding that we have received from the Players Coalition and that we're announcing today, that's going to allow us to find out at least a little bit more. Allow us to figure out what it feels like when we measure what law enforcement does in the lives of the most vulnerable communities, and to feel like that measurement's going to matter. We could not be happier to be partnering with the Players Coalition and with the other people who are up here on this dais. Thank you for the time.
The Justice Collaborative Engagement Project is an independent, nonpartisan research and advocacy organization devoted to holding public officials accountable for reforming the justice system and building healthier and safer communities. Please welcome John Matthews, Senior Legal Counsel at the Justice Collaborative.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Tori. Many thanks to the Players Coalition. You guys seriously do incredible work, and to all the grantees, the legends on stage here, so a little nervous. My name is John Matthews. I'm Senior Legal Counsel for the Justice Collaborative. This press conference is definitely a new experience for us. We're not used to being in the spotlight. We like to work behind the scenes. It's such a new experience. My coworker and friend, Jess, told me yesterday, she's like, you're the first person to speak so publicly about what we do, which I think what she was really saying is, this is a big deal, don't mess this up. So no pressure. The United States locks up more people than any other country, criminalizes poverty, needlessly separates children from their parents, and throws away people who make mistakes on a regular basis. Mass incarceration has been especially devastating for Black families and communities, but incarceration has hurt all of us. It is costly, and it hasn't made us safer. We are living in a time where crime, and especially violent crime, is near record lows. The last time we had crime this low was during the early 1970s, before I was born. Today, however, we incarcerate at 5 times the rate than we did back then. In 1972, we locked up just under 200,000 people in state and federal prisons. In 2014, that number was 1.56 million, in addition to 700,000 in local jails. Simply put, we have an incarceration problem. We have a humanity problem. Our goal at the Justice Collaborative is to force those with the power to end mass incarceration to do it, and to change our national conversation so that people form a chorus and demand that change with the urgency it deserves. We are a team of legal experts, researchers, journalists, and media strategists working towards the common goal of bringing human dignity and restraint to our deeply flawed criminal justice system. We work with groups pressuring from the outside to encourage officials to reduce incarceration, incredibly committed organizers and reformers who are on the front lines of this work every day, folks like people on this stage. We also help elected officials who are committed to reform with crafting and implementing policies that are fair and that safely reduce the hefty prison, jail, and probation population. And we have an incredible journalism team. The Appeal, which produces original justice journalism, explainers, newsletters, and 2 weekly podcasts. I listen to each episode of Just in America twice a week. I suggest you do the same. Our partnership with the Players Coalition has been critically important to our work. Their unyielding commitment, interest, and dedication to this work and these issues has been inspiring. You already heard Malcolm talk about all of the work they've been doing. You saw the video. One thing I'd like to note is we also have been doing incredible work around district attorney, both education and advocacy. The district attorney, in many ways, holds the key to rolling back mass incarceration. I'm biased, I was a former federal prosecutor, but I do think you can't deny that prosecutors play a critical role in today's system. And the system relies so heavily on plea agreements, district attorneys are also often the judge and the jury. They decide who to charge, when to charge them, how to charge them, and what sentence to ask for. And yet most people do not even know what the district attorney does or who the district attorney is. Over the last year, the Players Coalition has helped put the important role of DAs front and center in cities like Boston, Sacramento, Oakland, St. Louis County, and Maryland. Players Coalition members came through, pushed candidates on issues such as bail reform, ending the war on drugs, and holding police accountable. These candidates were educated, made promises, and are now demonstrating in their first months in office that change is possible. Consider Rachel Rollins, the new DA in Boston. At the Players Coalition Forum, she promised to stop prosecuting drug possession cases and to treat them like a public health problem. And starting day one, she did just that. It's one thing for lawyers from our organization to try to extract these promises. It's quite another for Malcolm Jenkins or Anquan Boldin or Devin McCourty to put pressure on these elected officials. This is just a sampling of the work of the Players Coalition and how it's elevated issues that we and others tirelessly work on every day. As Dr. King powerfully instructed us all, human progress is neither automatic nor inevitable. Every step toward the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle, the tireless exertions and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. Tomorrow, many of these players will highlight an issue critical to this city, bail reform. Last year, Atlanta ended money bail for nonviolent misdemeanors and ordinances, but as always happens with change, people are already pushing back. Players will meet with officials to encourage them to keep moving forward and to let them know that they are watching. I want to thank the City of Atlanta for hosting us. Everybody's so nice here. And I want to thank the Players Coalition for their enormous support over the last year. It's been an honor to work by your side, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
On behalf of the Players Coalition, we'd like to thank everybody for coming out. This day for us is a big day. I know all of the grantees have thanked us for the partnership, but we're definitely grateful to be partnering with you guys and the work that you guys have been doing for so long. Allowing us to join alongside of you guys and work in our communities has definitely been a great opportunity that we look forward to continuing. So with that, we thank you guys for coming out. We thank the grantees for the work that they've been doing, and we look forward to continuing our work in 2019.